Welcome to the Real World. My name's Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 65 of the Real World podcast. Today we are talking all about the creator and our favorite AI films. Thanks for joining us here on the Real World YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. If you're a movie fan, you are in the right place. Make sure you join us in all of our other videos. There's a lot of playlists on the channel. All kinds of reviews. I review 4K and Blu-ray movies. I review new things on streaming and in theaters. So make sure you join us there. Now we are going to get things started with movie news, as we usually do. The WGA strike has ended. Finally, the writers in Hollywood are back to work. They reached a deal with the studios, and now they are moving forward with several films. There are some new rules. However, AI cannot write or rewrite literary material, and AI-generated material will not be considered source material. Also, a writer can choose to use AI, but the studio can't require this writer to use AI software. Studios must disclose to writers if any materials given to them have been generated by AI or incorporate AI-generated material. Also, the WGA reserves the right to assert that exploitation of writers' material to train AI is prohibited by the agreement and of other law. Now we're just waiting on the SAG strike to end. After that, movies are back in business. Star Trek IV is in development still, with Lindsay Anderson Beer writing the script. She is an up-and-coming director, and a lot of fans are waiting this film. There was a lot of rumors about it. There were plans in place that fell through. Several directors have come and gone from the project, but hopefully we can assemble the cast again and enjoy another great Star Trek movie. I really am a big fan of the new cast, and so I'd like to see them join together one more time. DreamWorks is adapting The Wild Robot with Chris Sanders. Sanders, of course, known for directing Lilo and Stitch, How to Train Your Dragon, The Croods, Call of the Wild was his first live-action film. He also voices Stitch in every movie, show, and video game. So definitely looking forward to what DreamWorks is going to do with this book adaptation. Paw Patrol 3 is coming. The second film was just released in theaters, but the third film is already in development, set for release in 2026. Argylle released the first trailer, and I am not sure about this one. I'm a big fan of Matthew Vaughn, especially his work in X-Men First Class, but his Kingsman films, I'm not a huge fan of. I thought the prequel, The King's Man, was the best one of the three, but this one does have a great cast, including Sam Rockwell, Bryce Dallas Howard, Henry Cavill, John Cena, Catherine O'Hara, and Samuel L. Jackson, among others. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll definitely be watching it. Celebrating its 20th anniversary this week is School of Rock. I had to mention this one. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. So much fun. Got me into music. Really enjoyed Jack Black's performance here. Richard Linklater directed this. Definitely worth seeking out. If you don't have it, I've got the Blu-ray here. It's definitely worth a watch. All right, folks, well, that's it for movie news. Now it's time to get into our main topic. Before we do that, I want to introduce our panel of esteemed guests. Joining me again is Bert. How you doing, man?
Hey, fantastic. How's it going?
Doing well, doing well. Sorry you got lost in the Matrix there, but hopefully we can get you out soon.
By the end, maybe. Yeah.
Also, we have Josh with us. How you doing, man?
Doing well, thank you.
Great. Well, Josh and I both got to see The Creator, so we're going to give you our review of The Creator right now, spoiler free. So this is the new film from Gareth Edwards. Of course, he's a British director who is known for movies like Monsters, Godzilla from 2014, and Rogue One, the Star Wars film. So this is his fourth feature film, and I think it's his best film yet. I really think he did a great job with it. I'm really glad that Hollywood is still taking risks on these kind of big sci-fi ideas with big budgets, you know. But something I found out about this is that the budget actually was smaller than I expected. It was only 80 million. It looks like a $200 million movie. I mean, it's really incredible that they were able to pull this off. So really impressive on that front. So yeah, I think Edwards has more than proven himself as one of our better up and coming directors. You know, his actors do a great job. I think the weaknesses for me came with the script and the editing. is what I felt that was a little bit lacking. The actors are good. I just never felt like they really elevated the material necessarily. John David Washington, I'm a fan of his from Tenet. And I think here he gives an even better performance, but it didn't wow me in any major way. The one who did wow me was Madeline Una Voyle. She is a young child actress. She's got to be under 10. I don't know how old she is, but wow, she just blew me
9
away.
years old.
She's 9?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, she absolutely blew me away. Really, really magnificent performance from her. The rest of the supporting cast is great. Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Allison Janney. They all deliver, really good performances too. But again, I just felt the screenplay didn't flesh their characters out as much as I would have liked. And I feel like with the editing, there are a lot of flashbacks throughout the film. And I felt like they got a little bit repetitive. We kind of saw the same thing over and over a couple times. And I'm not really sure why they did that. I guess they just wanted to keep reminding us of kind of the main core emotional storyline, but I felt they could have developed the characters with that time. So I was a little mixed on that. I really think that the effects are incredible, pretty much seamless. I really didn't see the effects. They were just kind of there. It was just part of the story. So very much impressed by there and really all the visuals. I think the biggest strength of the film is the visual storytelling. We got Greg Fraser and Oren Sofer as cinematographers here, which is pretty rare. From what I understand, Greg Fraser was off doing something else, but he would kind of zoom in and call in all the time and talk to them about things. And Oren Sofer was kind of the guy on the ground with the camera. So kind of a unique situation there. But definitely looked great. Natural lighting, a lot of real locations here, which is rare for this type of movie. When you're dealing with robots and that kind of thing, you don't typically see them in the jungle or like on the river in these settings. So that was really fun to see. Definitely unique in that way. Just a great world building. I would love to, see a spinoff or a sequel. It doesn't really set up a sequel, but it would be fun to just get lost in this world again, because I think the way they did it was really, really powerful. So yeah, all in all, really liked it. Zimmer's score, of course, was another great Zimmer score. He rarely lets us down. And so, a lot of interesting themes here, of course, as many AI films that we're going to talk about what it is to be human. This one deals a lot more with kind of like war and xenophobia and that kind of thing. So there's talk of the afterlife as well, which I enjoyed. So a lot of things going on here, a lot of characters, a big world. They tried to tell a pretty intimate story, really about just two characters that I thought was pretty effective, but it could have been a little bit better on that end. So I'm at 4 stars on it. I really think, first of all, I'm a huge sci-fi nut. So I think, getting more movies like this, original sci-fi, is something I want dearly. And so I hope we get more of it. It's in my top 10 of the year, I think, for me. So Josh, why don't you give us your thoughts on The Creator?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. The first, I did get to catch it 2 times, partially because I saw it in IMAX, and then because it's filmed in the I don't know what the company was, but the ultra wide,
right.
And so lenses, and so the black bars are pretty noticeable. So I thought, oh, maybe a different format. Let's see what it looks like. So I don't know if this is just because I was used to it the first time or not, but I did like the Dolby better in that regard.
Okay.
But yeah, the first time I saw it, kind of like what you were saying, some of the editing choices, like maybe like a third or the fourth way through, it felt a little too quick. And then I did think, I was like, why are they showing this scene again? It's slightly different, but like we've seen it. And then yeah, but I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. But like just some of those things kind of hung me up on it, and enough to like negatively affect my star rating, I guess. So I started out at 3.5. I was debating 3.5 or 4. I wasn't sure. But then the second time I saw it, just I know I've said it before, but I'm a sucker for like emotional storytelling. So stuff like the X-Men prequels are really good at that. And I think this film was as well. So the second time I saw it, I loved it. My I saw it with a friend the second time, and after as soon as the credits started, he looked over me. He was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." um, yeah, really good, really good storytelling. And like you said, the fact that he was able to accomplish this, like I feel like I've seen some articles saying like, hopefully this changes Hollywood with the fact that like everything's such screen usage, like especially for like Marvel stuff and big blockbusters like this. But he found it was cheaper to actually go to the locations, like you said, and just film there and then overlay afterwards with the effects and everything. And it just, like you said, it looks fantastic. And I guess he used like a relatively cheap camera as well, an expensive camera with good lenses. So yeah, I really enjoyed the film second go around. So maybe if you don't like it the first time, give it a second shot. Yeah, a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's derivative or oh, this and that. And there's nothing original. Everything's just it's original because you're the one telling it. And so I don't mind any comparisons. Like I think a really good comparison could be made to Rogue One, but I don't mind. It's okay. I enjoy both. So I absolutely loved the film.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Let us know what you think of the creator if you got to see it this weekend in the comments below. Now it is time to jump in to our favorite AI movies of all time. Okay, well, that is our review for The Creator. Again, if you got a chance to see it, let us know in the comments below your review. Also follow us on Letterboxd. We're all on Letterboxd. Those links are in the description below. You can get our reviews there. But now we're going to discuss our top 3 favorite AI movies of all time. Each of us have a list of 3 films we've selected as our 3 favorites. So AI, it's obviously a huge, thing right now. Just everyone's talking about all these developments with artificial intelligence and robotics and all this stuff. So, it's obviously a very timely discussion. Any movie that deals with artificial intelligence is on the table here. So, most we could call this best robot movies too, because most of these movies are about robots that become self-aware or whatever, and take over the world, or all kinds of different things, right, that people have done with AI and robots and film. And throughout history, long time, we've had robots in movies, going back to the 1950s, right? So early days of sci-fi, this has been around. For my list, it was really pretty simple. I really wanted to choose movies where the main character was an AI or the main villain. But most of mine, I focused in on, I wanted the main character to himself or herself be an artificial intelligence or a robot of some kind. So that was kind of my thinking going in. What were you guys thinking? Josh, did you have any specific kind of criteria?
Yeah, it was definitely, it had to be like a main character. Like I have some in my honorable mentions that they're in the movie enough to be of note, but they're not like a main part of it per se.
Okay.
But I did want to focus more on the ones that were a main part. And then usually I kind of go back and forth with these things between like the movie as a whole and then like specifically the part of it that we're talking about. And I think I did that as well for this, but it was also kind of like what resonated with me personally about the AIs themselves, because like you said, there's heroes, there's villains, there's ones that are humanoid in form, there's ones that are like R2D2 or something like that, or just like voices that are part of a ship, like in Finding Nemo. I'm sorry, not Finding Nemo, Wally, and Finding Nemo. So all sorts of different types of AI and robots. Or some that we don't even see, like in Mission Impossible. So I was really trying to see like what stuck out to me, like on a I guess more emotional level, is kind of what I was going for here.
Great, excellent. Bert, what were your thoughts on this going in?
I didn't really think about it so much as whether it's the main character. I think just by default, it often ends up being that anyway. So it probably is the case. I tried to use certain criteria, such as there's really no cyborgs at the front and center, like part human, I guess is what that would be called, or humanoid or something. So I kind of steered away from those kind of movies. And I also stayed away from people inside robots or robot shells, or like mech suits, that kind of thing, because it's a person driving it. It's not an artificial intelligence. So that was kind of the focus. So that actually eliminated some really good ones too. Regardless, I still had way too many to try to pick from.
Right.
So we talked about because of the mechs, we talked about not including Pacific Rim, but there is actually an AI in Pacific Rim. I totally forgot about that until just now. I was remembering the series on Netflix, which is really good. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And there's an AI. So like, oh,
interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think the reason you got Finding Nemo and Wally confused is because Sigourney Weaver voices the aquarium. She's like the voiceover at the aquarium, and she's also the voice of the ship in Wally.
She is?
Yeah.
Of Otto?
No, not Otto, but there's another voice that comes over the speakers.
The ambient
Rogue Robots.
Whoa.
You know? Yeah, that's her.
That's her? Oh, dude, I did not know that. That's so cool.
Right. I think they did that because the first Alien movie, obviously, she talks to the computer of the ship mother all the time, and it's probably the connection there. But anyways.
Nice nod.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, we've got a few honorable mentions to get through, as you mentioned. So I'm going to kick us off with a few here. Going way back to 1968, the original evil AI from 2001, A Space Odyssey, HAL 9000. Had to mention, he's kind of like the prototype for most of what we're going to talk about today, probably. Just a little red eye and a very kind of, odd voice. So yeah, excellent, film and a great AI villain. Then I'll jump ahead to the 90s with an anime called Ghost in the Shell. This is a lot of fun, really well made. It was remade in live action with Scarlett Johansson. I haven't seen that version yet, but really like the 90s film. It's very well made, very influential, especially in Japanese animation. So definitely wanted to mention that. And then staying in the 90s with 1999, The Iron Giant, of course, was considered here. Have you guys seen the signature edition, the extended that they put out?
I'm not sure which version I watched. I know it was good.
There's a scene called The Giant's Dream where he basically is dreaming about where he came from, and you kind of see like more about his backstory, and it's really interesting and really, it's very brief, but it's very cool. So that one was certainly considered. And then also from 99, of course, The Matrix. This is one of the best ever. Was certainly thought of, the war against the machines and the whole thing. So had to bring that one up too. I'll also mention one that I really like that I got to rewatch this week. I've seen it numerous times, but it had been a while. Real Steel. This movie is so much fun. Sean Levy directed it. Hugh Jackman stars. It's got Evangeline Lilly, Anthony Mackie. It's a really fun robot boxing movie. So it's like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the movie, basically. But it's got this really heartwarming father-son story. It's just tons of fun. There's comedy in it. There's drama. A lot of good action. And Adam, the robot that is kind of in they're fighting with, he's an AI. It's suggested that he's completely sentient a couple times in the movie. And so, but they keep it kind of ambiguous, which I like about that. So this is just a really good one that I've enjoyed many, many times over the years. And then going a totally different direction with more of a thriller, Ex Machina is really good. This is a super tight, kind of claustrophobic thriller, all in one location. Alicia Vikander stars, Donald Gleason, Oscar Isaac's in there as well. Alex Garland wrote and directed this. I think this is the first or second film he ever wrote and directed. And it's just super intense and really, really well done. So had to bring that one up. Just a couple more. Oblivion. I didn't really, when I was looking at lists, I was like, Oblivion? Oh yeah, there's that huge floating thing out there that's in charge of all this. Right. They call it the Tet. And so yeah, it's not like a huge presence throughout the movie. Yeah, but it ends up being revealed that it is this kind of AI that's doing all this stuff. That's right. That's one I had to mention. And then lastly,
it's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. And then one I have in the background right now that I've only seen a couple times but I really want a sequel. It's Alita Battle Angel.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
this movie is
good one.
awesome. It looks really cool.
Mhm.
This one though, she is kind of more of a cyborg, I guess, technically, because she has a
Right.
human brain. So
Exactly.
that's why I
Yeah.
kind of eliminated this one. But it kind of falls into kind of this category that we're talking about. But
Mhm.
really, really just a great film. One of Robert Rodriguez's best movies, I would say. And so yeah, hopefully we eventually get a sequel to this.
Yeah.
Hashtag Alita Army.
Yes, absolutely. Josh, take it away with your honorable mentions.
Okay. I had, obviously we got like Jarvis from the Marvel films, mainly Iron Man, and then Vision as he becomes Vision in Age of Ultron, and also Ultron is a really good villain AI that I considered. So I also had Prometheus here for Michael Fassbender.
Best part of
I
that
wasn't
movie.
sure,
Yeah.
huh?
He's the best part of that movie.
He is, yes. I wasn't sure if I should include Tars from Interstellar or not, but he's kind of got a personality, so I liked it.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Sure.
There's a kind of like a not super well known movie called Alienoid, and it's kind of like a combination of like the superhero sci-fi esque feel with like feudal Japan. There's kind of some time travel involved. And it's really cool actually. But two of the characters are AI. One's humanoid looking, and one's like a little robot that can shapeshift. Let's see, Space Sweepers for Bubs, I guess is the name of that robot. He's kind of sarcastic and cool.
That movie is so underrated. No one's even hardly
It
heard of
is.
it. It's on
Yes.
Netflix, and
It's such a fun ride.
people need to go watch that. Space Sweepers. It's so good.
It reminded me of Serenity with like that team.
Yes.
We're all in this together aspect
Right.
on one ship kind of thing. I had to mention Star Trek Insurrection for the scene with Data. Well, first of all, Data, but the scene where he's singing is just like it makes you laugh. And then
I'd say his best movie though is First Contact, wouldn't you?
I don't remember them enough.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since I've watched them, but I just remember that part just because it's so unexpected. He's just singing. That part's always just stuck with me. Right. So yeah, I couldn't say for the whole character of Data, but at least that part. There's another movie I can't even mention without it being a spoiler, because it's literally the plot of the movies that you find out it's an AI. So if you know what it is, you know, I guess, whatever the acronym for that is. And then another one I'll throw out there is After Yang. I just got to see that one. It's been on my watch list for a while. It's the only A24 film that I've seen that's PG. I was very surprised about that. Yeah. But it's really good, really thought provoking. Deals with like kind of like what a lot of these do with like the humanness and where like people interacting with AI that look human and like how much do we forget that it is and stuff like that. It's pretty good. Colin Farrell. Yes. Colin Farrell is in it.
Yep. Great film. Yeah, it came out just last year. One of my favorites of the year. Mm-hmm. All right, Bert, give us your honorable mentions.
Okay, well, first I got to mention AI, artificial intelligence, the Spielberg film. There's so many interesting and great things about this film. When I'm watching it, I feel like this is one of the best movies ever made because there's so much good stuff here. But there's also there's a fair bit of content that's kind of off-putting. And the plot kind of meanders around a little bit at times. I feel like there's not a lot of focus in the plot. But I could talk for an hour about how many good things that are in it. So it's probably the only 3-star film that I've watched 7 times. You know what I mean? It's one of those. I have to mention that one.
I totally agree with you on that. That's a must-see movie, I feel like, but it's not one that I watch often. But of course, Spielberg directed it. It was written though by Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we talked about
that. Yeah, it's a
right.
very interesting movie, kind of blending their styles in a unique way. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, the next one is an 80s sort of zany comedy called Weird Science. Have you guys heard of this movie?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Starring Anthony and Michael Hall, and it's 2 teen boys. They create the ultimate fantasy woman on their computer. It's mostly PG-ish. I mean, it's not like the other way. So anyway, they create this fantasy woman, and to their surprise, it comes alive and kind of teaches them some things. Again, it's not like an R-rated kind of deal. It's more comedy. It's very funny. Watched dozens of times in my youth. A lot of quotable lines. Bill Paxton's in it.
Okay.
I'll mention that one. I'll throw out also Tron Legacy. First act is 5 stars, and then Act 2 and 3 just kind of fall apart for me. So it's got one of my all-time favorite scores. The score is better than the film, in my opinion. I listened to that so many times. But it is a very good movie, though. I'll mention Megan one more time. I keep talking about this horror film from last year where the android Megan comes alive and sort of dances her way into our lives and hearts. It's actually too short. I thought that film was too short. It was funny. And then I got to mention I Am Mother. It's just a great low budget film. It kind of reminds me of sort of like a Terminator offshoot. It's almost like, what if a group of the Terminators were over here doing this thing while everything was going on?
Oh,
yeah. And so that's one I had to mention. I got a few more. Cam, did you have some more too, or no?
No, I'm all done. Go for it.
I had a few more, but
you do? Okay, I'll whip through these.
Yeah.
Really love Bicentennial Man. One of Robin Williams' best roles. And honestly, it kind of reminds me of AI in some ways.
Yep.
Because of the sort of the plot. It's just a lot less macabre, and but some great special effects here too. A great score. Sam Neill is just exquisite. I love that one. I've seen it so many times. Did anybody mention Transformers: Age of Extinction yet? Okay, it's probably my favorite Transformers film. It didn't quite make my top 3, but I really like that one. Bumblebee's right up there too. None of those films are perfect in my opinion, but
yeah,
maybe my favorite one. You talked about Avengers Ultron, and then the last one that didn't make my top 3 was Mother Android, and this is that Hulu film that came out I think last year, and maybe 21, I'm not sure, but Mother Android, it sounds like a B movie. It sounds like one that should not be any good, but thank goodness you try those, because you find this stuff out. It's just such a personal, effective film for me, and hopefully other people, just outside my top 3.
Yep, glad you brought that one up too. That was definitely considered for me as well. Great film. Josh, what are the rest of yours?
Yeah. Well, real quick on Mother Android, I liked the personal, like you said, like you really just see it through their eyes. They did a really good job at making it like that kind of like if it was in real people, like if it happened to us, this is kind of what it would be like. Yeah. I really like that aspect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a couple of Transformers movies on here. Bumblebee was the main one because I feel like that's the most, I don't know, the most endearing maybe. You kind of have that like the How to Train Your Dragon ET kind of feel to it, which I really liked. I also had Tomorrowland. Bit of a spoiler if I say anything more than that, but I'll just say that. What else do I have on here? You already mentioned Dex Machina, A Big Hero 6 for Baymax.
Oh yeah, that one
was up there, almost made it. And then the Star Wars film, so R2D2, C3PO, BB-8, stuff like that. The battle droids aren't really sentient; they kind of just follow orders. But maybe the ones from the shows.
Right. Awesome. Excellent. Great, guys. Yeah, there's so many of these movies. I mean, we could have 3 podcasts about AI movies and robot movies, and it very well could be a topic that we revisit in the future. But we want to get to our top 3 now. So kicking us off is going to be Josh. What is your number 3?
So before I say that, I will say that my number 1 is technically going to be The Iron Giant. But because we already talked about that, and I specifically already talked about that in our directorial debut podcast, go check out that one if you haven't seen it, I elected to push that aside. So
Gotcha.
I just want to throw that out there. But in case you see the letterbox list later, I was like, wait, he didn't talk about that. But my number 3 is going to be Rogue One for K2SO.
Nice.
As I was trying to think about like what was going to make it and why. He kind of really stood out to me just for, I mean, Alan Tudyk does an amazing job. It's the character is who he is because of Alan Tudyk. And not only just because of the writers that wrote for it as well, but also his improvisation on set. Like when he's got Jin and Cassian and he's pretending to have him prisoner. And then Cassian starts talking and he slaps him. That wasn't in the script, and which I'm sure you guys already know. And it's just really funny to see Cassian, I forget that. Oh, Diego Luna. Just like he's like hiding his face because he's like dying laughing in that moment because he was not expecting that. So there's stuff like that, and his K2's sarcasm and humor really endeared me to him. he's also a good fighter as well. But so kind of like a very wide range of abilities as an AI or a droid, essentially. But it's really because to not only the humor, but just underneath like that bristly and skeptical outside. Like when Jen first comes on, he's like, yeah, I don't know about you, but like he just resides a heart that really cares for his friends and those who become his friends, like Jin. So stuff like that, and then spoiler, sacrificing himself at the end for them is really what led me to lock in that for number 3.
Great selection. Yeah, he's definitely one of the droids that stands out the most in all of Star Wars because he does have so much personality and a unique design. We haven't really seen that kind of droid before, I don't think. So yeah, it's a great pick. And yeah, working on those stilts had to be difficult because he's like, I don't know, 7-something feet tall. And so Alan Tudyk, you see him on set and he's like walking on these stilts. And so, yeah.
And he's got a pole for the head, which is
That's
even
right.
above him. So
Yeah.
it's even taller than him on stilts.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. I'm glad you picked. I got my Rogue One shirt on today.
Oh,
so
nice.
For Gareth Edwards, who of course directed this and the creator. And yeah, it's nice. It's definitely a solid movie. One I've seen a number of times. Great lead in to episode 4. The way they incorporated the the pilots that we see in the Battle of the Death Star, Battle of Yavin.
That was so cool.
That was just so interesting and cool how they did that. And of course, now we've got Andor. We've got his whole backstory in this series on Disney Plus now. So yeah, it's definitely a good pick. Bert, have you seen Rogue One?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater, actually. I thought it was decent. I'm not a huge Star Wars guy.
Sure.
And I get the feeling when I watch almost every one of those films that there's other stuff going on that I'm unaware of, there's like other characters that factor in and I'm missing a lot of it. But as an entertaining film, I mean, it's probably like a 3-star film. I thought it was decent.
Great. Excellent. All right, Bert, why don't you give us your number 3?
My number 3 is X-Men Days of Future Past. And I was thinking
I forgot about that.
Just like real quick, like recap this. And I couldn't because it's so convoluted just to even explain the plot. Plus, if you haven't seen any X-Men movies, it's not going to make any sense. So real quick, read this from IMDb. Convinced that mutants pose a threat to humanity, Dr. Trask develops the Sentinels, enormous robotic weapons that detect a mutant gene and zero in on that person. In the 21st century, the Sentinels have evolved into highly efficient killing machines. So now they must go back and change the past and so on. So that's a pretty good way of trying to explain it.
Right.
So and it is a sort of a weird thing because this film comes so far into the series, and it's not really like a culmination, but it kind of feels like that. Yet it has, both casts, the older cast, or I should say the younger cast of which kind of had just recently been introduced. So it's really tricky to pull off a film like this. It's an all-star cast, young and older. I think it's a really touching script. Some of the best acting in the series, especially by McAvoy. And there's something about these Sentinels that to me are kind of creepy and they're very effective. You guys too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then just film-wise, there's some terrific shot setups. There's a really good score. And just this blending, though, of the characters that are old and young, played by different people. So, like Professor Xavier doesn't look exactly the same, older and younger. But honestly, I'd rather have the performance than worry about how much their nose matches up or something like that. Wouldn't you, guys?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. A lot of these movies, you get someone that kind of looks like them, but the performance might falter. But here, I mean, it's just across the board, everything's really good. We get to see Wolverine as a fish out of water again. And it's funny because in X-Men 1, he's already a fish out of water. He's this guy that doesn't really belong anywhere. And then by the time you get up to this film, then they find a kind of a new way to throw Wolverine. Now he's back in the early 70s. And once again, he has to deal with a completely different situation, which he'd been in the 70s before, but not with his powers and knowledge and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
First rate effects in this movie, some good stunts. I'm not even sure it's the best X-Men film. It might be, but there's so many that are really great. I'm a big fan of that series, but I just had to mention it because the Sentinels are ever present and kind of looming in the background, if nothing else, and very effective.
Yeah, I agree. I like that we get two designs too. We get the
Oh,
70s
true.
design, which is kind of like this
That's
retro
right.
look, and then we get the
Yeah.
future design, which is like totally creepy and weird. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a great pick. It didn't really come to my mind, but yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
what that movie's all about, really, is the Sentinels and the threat that they pose. So great pick.
And they do a good job too of kind of like what you were saying, like they are threatening, and they do a good job of communicating that through kills. In both sides, that you just kind of, they do have that looming presence, like you're saying, like you're dreading them, like when he goes back into the past, you're dreading them like being activated and online, and you're like, this is bad.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
They do a
definitely.
really good job with that.
They do. They do. Yeah, and that cast is great. I mean, it's one of the
Mm.
biggest casts. I mean, probably other than like Avengers Endgame, that's the biggest cast that's ever been assembled. Yeah, like you're saying, both the original cast and the new cast, and yeah, they all play off each other so well. Yeah, like you mentioned, Singled Out McAvoy. I agree. That's his best performance, maybe that I've ever seen. So many emotional moments to play, and the way he plays
Mm-hmm.
off Michael Fassbender as Magneto, and I
Yes.
just always think of that scene that they have in the airplane. That's just super, super well done. So
Yes.
yeah, another great pick. All righty. So now we are moving into my number three pick. These three were hard to arrange. This was at number two, it was at number one. They just all got flipped around. But at number three ended up being Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Mm.
The Terminator franchise is one of my favorites, specifically the first two movies. The others I don't think are nearly as good. I like Salvation a lot, but first
Yeah.
two I think are just incredible. Two of my favorite movies ever made. T2, saw it when I was fairly young. It had to have been my first R-rated movie. It is just James Cameron's greatest achievement, I feel like. As a
Mm.
writer, as a director, his background is in visual effects, so as a visual effects artist as well, I guess you could throw in there. I think it's just his best work. I really do. I think it's one of the greatest action movies ever made, one of my favorite sci-fi movies. Just incredible, gunfights and stunt work and chase sequences. The again, going back to the visual effects, they hold up super well. This is 91. This is before Jurassic Park. I mean, this is like
Mm.
early days CGI, but it just looks great because they spent the time and the effort that they needed to on it. So it's great technically, just from a technical perspective, very well shot, edited, everything. I prefer the theatrical version. There's a special edition out there that I like as well, but I
Mm.
slightly prefer the theatrical cut. It's just a little tighter and kind of neater. Um, what really stands out here for me is Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
Just she's incredible as Sarah Connor. Totally different character from who she is in the first movie. We're jumping, about a decade into the future from where we last saw her as this kind of just, regular waitress. Like she's just a normal person, but now she's become this kind of like mother of the future. She's like ripped up, and she's an expert at weapons and strategy. And the funny thing is, I was listening to some interviews, and she didn't want to come back for it. She didn't want to do a
Oh,
sequel.
really?
And James Cameron was hounding her about it. He's like, I really have to have you come back. You're the heart of the movie. And she's like, I'll come back if I can be crazy and if I can get jacked. And so he let her go crazy, and he let her get jacked. And so yeah, it's just she's unhinged. She's in an insane asylum. I mean, just all the stuff that they do with the character that's so unexpected.
Mm.
But she just makes it all so believable. So she does a great job. Of course, Arnold, he gets a lot of flack for his acting. I think this is his best performance to me. I think, first of all, it's a lot harder than it seems to play a robot. If you ask an actor to do that, most of them really are going to have a hard time. That's why I think a lot of AI movies are more about AI that is human, because they can just play a character. They're just playing like a human character that happens to be a robot. Whereas here he's playing this mechanical creature, who's very like cold and calculating, and like has no understanding of like how to interact with humans or how to speak or behave. but throughout the movie, he learns, right? So he's a learning robot. So John Connor, this young kid, who I love that they did that. They made him have to obey any order this kid gives him. It just makes for some really great comedic moments that are very memorable. But yeah, so Arnold, I think if you think he's a bad actor, really think about what he's doing here and kind of his. I mean, he has a whole character arc here, which is pretty rare for most robot movies, especially. So I think he does a great job. Of course, Robert Patrick as the villainous AI here, the T-1000. Liquid metal, you know, as Arnold says. And so he does a great job too. He's like just on his mission the whole time. He has a couple of like kind of funny, like the finger wagging moment, a couple of little personality moments in there, but for the most part, he's just very straightforward trying to, kill these people, and does a great job at that. Edward Furlong, like I mentioned, he's kind of a very endearing kind of punk teenage kid who a lot of people say is annoying. I never found him to be annoying, maybe because I was around his age when I saw the movie and I just related to him. I don't know, but I've always liked his performance in this. So I like their back and forth he has with both Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger. Just a really good, almost like a father-son story in many ways. It's kind of like a Boy and His Robot, like Iron Giant, or E.T. or something else like that, Boy and His Dog type story. But it kind of later becomes more of a father figure to the character, which I think is very effective and hard to pull off. It's hard to pull off stuff like that, but I feel like they do it here tremendously well. Brad Feidel's score is iconic, and they use it very well. Adam Greenberg's camera work and lighting is great, really well paced, great. Tons of quotable lines, "Hasta la vista, baby," and all the other iconic lines they have here are great. No fate but what we make. That's kind of the whole thesis statement of the film, which is why I like the sequels less and less, because I feel it goes back on that whole idea, but that's a discussion for another time. So yeah, this is easily one of my favorite AI movies, favorite robot movies. So many memorable moments throughout. I've watched it innumerable times, and will continue to. Got to rewatch it this week with the wife, and she was asking about she's only seen the first one once and this one once, so she was like, how does this work? That doesn't make sense if he's his dad and then he's a kid now, and it's like, don't think about it too much, it'll hurt your head. But anyways, yeah, that one came out in 91, and again, I'm just surprised by how well it holds up, honestly.
Yeah,
go back to many movies from 91, it's not going to hold up that well. So that ended up at number 3.
Nice. I need to see it again. I meant to go through both the Alien and Terminator, I almost said Transformers, Terminator movies for this one, but I didn't get a chance to go through them again. But this was, when I first went through them, this was my favorite one for sure. It is very endearing as well. Like you said, that relationship, which is not even just that relationship, but like you said, going from like the Boy and His Dog to that, like that you'd think that'd be weird, but they accomplish it. And that in itself is something.
Yeah, for sure.
This is my number 2.
Oh, okay, great.
Change up the order a little bit.
Okay, that's fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm digging what you're throwing down here. I mean, the thing is, James Cameron took what was a very effective bad guy in the first one, and I think a lot of series would have just continued that. He just continues to be, more badness on and on, but instead he makes him the good guy, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest hook here, and it just really works. Furlong, I mean, he's 70% good. I never found him necessarily annoying. I just think it's very hard to nail what they're trying to pull off dialogue wise, and it's mostly good. I mean, this is like a top 20 movie all time for me, so it's not like I'm saying it's bad, but it's mostly good. But yeah, it's Linda Hamilton. She just gives this desperate performance. I mean, like the scenes in the hospital, and you just totally feel her, what she's experiencing. It's like PTSD and whatnot. And Robert Patrick, you wouldn't think that he's necessarily imposing when you first look at him, right. And then the performance he created, given the limited parameters, is actually pretty brilliant. Yeah, really great, exciting action. It's kind of a road movie, and the pacing is really good. And even though this is the sequel, this kind of becomes sort of the template for the following films. Like they don't really, I feel like 2 through 6. Maybe not 4, or not, maybe not
5.
Yeah, 4.
5.
4 is Salvation. It's all in the future.
Yeah, that one. That
Yeah.
one's probably a little different too. But anyway, this is
Right.
Oh
kind of
yeah.
becomes sort of the template for the rest of it, including the TV series, which is also really good. The Sarah Connor Chronicles. And I do think T2 is the best of the series, but I think a couple of the other ones have come close. But yep, another discussion for another time.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to mention too, I forgot to mention, was Hamilton's performance is interesting because she goes from this very hardened kind of militaristic, she's basically become a Terminator herself. Like she's literally going to assassinate Miles Dyson. And then
Right.
she realizes
Singular
what she's
mission.
done
Yeah.
and kind of has that transformation. So it's again, just a very effective performance there. So great. Well, that was your 2. So let's go back to Josh and give us your number 2.
Yes. So my number 2, Gareth Edwards cracked 2 titles on here on my top 3. So I have The Creator at number 2.
Nice.
And at the risk of creating expectations, I'll just preface and say I don't want to create expectations. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and this is number 2 on AI, just I don't know. If you haven't seen it yet, just ignore everything I'm going to say. It was really the second time that, the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, it's really good. And like you said, what's her name? Madeline Una Voiles. Her performance, like, I don't know, she doesn't even look 9 years old. She looks like she's like 5 or 6. So that's what I was like, how old is she? How could she possibly have done this? Like accomplish this like a child? Like I have no idea. And so even at 9 years old, I still have no idea how she did this.
And I heard she was the first person they auditioned.
Yes, that is so cool. Yes, Gareth Edwards, he said that she auditioned and then he was like, can we do another one? And then like they did another take or another shot or whatever. And then he was like, do we need to keep looking? can we just go with this?
Yeah.
But yeah, and which that says something in and of itself, that they didn't need to audition other children. But also, yeah, she is the emotional heart of this film and she knocks it out of the park. Like you said, everyone does a great job, but she just home run. Especially in that third act, man. Several points in this film. There's something about child actors, I think, that or children in movies, that when they give a performance that like, especially if they're really good, it just the innocence of a child can really have that, like, it just pierces you with either that joy or that I don't know if sadness is the right word, but like the opposite effect, where it just really cuts you right to the heart. And I think just that obviously their acting ability and just the innocence of a child in general, I think really contribute to that. And so, yeah, for those reasons, I had to pick her. The second time I saw it, I was like, yeah, nope. She's definitely being in the top 3 here. So, yep, Alfie
Great.
is her character's name.
Yeah, great pick. She was definitely a standout, the standout in the film, character wise, acting wise. It is amazing to see someone that young be able to pull off these kind of emotional scenes that she has, or even moments of levity that she has throughout the movie. Getting involved in these action sequences and all that has to be a challenge for any actor, but especially a 9-year-old kid. I mean, yeah, it's pretty incredible. So yeah, I'm glad she made it.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to my number 2, and my number 2 is presented to you by this little guy right here. That's Wally. There he is. That's my number 2. This movie is so good. I've got the Criterion 4K edition, which is really cool artwork there. I like the way they did that. It's pretty neat. But it's a 3-disc edition, and it's got all kinds of bonus features. I was watching yesterday on how they came up with the idea, and it was originally titled Trash Planet. That was the title for a long time. And all these different things that they did. It's really a testament to Andrew Stanton as a director. I feel like he's one of the more underrated ones out there. He did Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, WALL-E. His live action debut was John Carter, which I feel like is a very underrated science fiction film based on one of my favorite book series. So he's a director I really like. This came out back in 2008. So it was when Pixar was, really on the rise after Toy Story and The Incredibles and Nemo and all these big movies were coming out. This was right after Ratatouille. I think it's their best film that they've made. It's just such a innovative idea. They're known as one of the most innovative studios out there as far as their technology and their storytelling, right? They had pretty much all original stories. They've done sequels now, but they're known for their original storytelling. And this one was just such a cool idea. In the future, you know, pollution has destroyed the planet. Humans have to leave on these. I love that it's a cruise ship. We've never seen that before in a sci-fi movie. Like usually it's like the military are going off or it's some exploration, but no, they're just going on a cruise, you know, out in space, and they're gonna lounge in their lounge chairs by the pool and drink some shakes and, you know, just relax until all the Wallies clean up the planet. Of course, it's been hundreds of years now. He's the last robot left. He's programmed to clean, so he's still just cleaning up, but obviously he's not getting anywhere fast. So and what I like about this movie is it uses AI both in the negative and positive, right? Because the villain ends up being Otto, the autopilot of this cruise ship, who's just leaving people out in space just until they all die off, I guess. And it has Wally, right? Who's, you know, after he meets Eve, she comes down to check the Earth, and he goes back with her to the ship, and he's like, there's life on the planet. You can come back now. And so he's trying to save the humans. Otto's trying to kind of destroy them, essentially. And he's very much a HAL 9000, kind of the red eye, you know, the ship's wheel. I like that design. There's just a lot of cool design elements here. A lot of time and effort went into the world building. All kinds of different robots we get here, right? We get like the umbrella robot, you know, all these malfunctioning ones that form this kind of ragtag team on the ship. They're a lot of fun to watch. Eve, I really like the design of Eve. You know, she was clearly designed by Steve Jobs, I think. You know, that very kind of crisp white, floats around, flies around, has all kinds of different abilities. I like, you know, every robot has kind of their own ability, and they kind of use it throughout the story in unique ways. This movie's got obviously a lot of comedy in it. It's virtually dialogue free for the first, I think, almost at least half hour of the film. So it's all visual storytelling.
Which that's crazy.
Yeah, it really is, that we get to know this character so well, and they really endear him to us. He's got his little cockroach buddy that crawls around, and his little pets. And so, yeah, the Hello Dolly song, you know, that they play, they do all these little things just to kind of help you relate to him. He obviously is interested in humanity and what it is to be human. Although the story's not really about him becoming human or anything like a lot of these movies are. It's more just about him. He loves humanity, and he just wants to save people and help people. So I just like that about him. I like it's really a romance too between him and Eve, which is pretty rare that you get a robot love story. I feel like that's something that doesn't happen very often. The entire cast here, it's a pretty small cast. They do incorporate for the first time in a Pixar movie live action actors though, into the animation. Fred Willard as the president.
That's right.
You know, you have, of course, Jeff Garlin as the captain. We mentioned Sigourney Weaver already. John Ratzenberger, who's a staple of all these. Ben Burt voices Wally. And he, of course, is the sound technician extraordinaire that worked on the Star Wars films, the original trilogy, and worked at Lucasfilm for many, many years. He's done some of the best sound work ever in movie history. So he was instrumental in this because it does not rely so much on dialogue as much as it does just the kind of ambient noises and sound effects and music and things like that. So I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. And that's why this movie really stands out for me, because it is just kind of pure cinema in that way. Visuals are what drives the story. And of course, you know, they're commenting on people and how we kind of can join into groupthink a lot. You know, all the people kind of dress the same on the ship and drink the same thing, and whatever's popular they do. You know, laziness is a huge theme here. Everyone's kind of become overweight and they just sit in their chairs, not kind of caring about anything else. But it's a lot like, you know, us today, America. So it's very relevant, unfortunately. But yeah, it's about living life and getting out into the world and doing things and interacting with people around you, not just on the screen that's in front of your face all day. So for all these reasons, I could talk about it all day. It's a movie that I've visited so many times over the years. We enjoy it as a family. It's a, you know, PG family, whole family can watch it. And so yeah, Wall-E made my number 2.
My favorite is do you guys I think you said your favorite was Wall-E? Yeah, my favorite is Mo.
The
little angry little robot, like frustrated, I should say.
Always cleaning up after him.
Yep. Yeah, I will say this is a film I feel like I appreciate more than I like. Not that I dislike it at all, but like I like other Pixar movies more.
Sure.
Like as far as like personally, but I do like you said, there's like so much from a filmmaking perspective and technical aspect that is even like above their other Pixar films. It's just on like a different playing field almost.
Right. Bert, what do you think of WALL-E?
Well, sorry I have to dissent a little bit here,
It's
but
okay.
it was kind of lost on me when I watched it. And frankly, the kids too just weren't really that interested in it. And it might be because of the lack of dialogue. I don't really know. It's quite a bit of a departure from anything else that was Pixar. So I haven't seen it in a long time. So I'm not gonna trash it, no pun intended. But I just remember that it just didn't feel like all the other Pixar films, and I wasn't really feeling it at the time. But I probably should revisit it.
Gotcha. Great. Okay, well, we're on to number ones now. So Josh, why don't you give us your number one?
All right. So at number one, I mentioned Prometheus earlier. So number one, I have Alien Covenant. And this isn't for the movie. This is definitely for Michael Fassbender as the AI robot here. So spoilers, if you have not seen it, this is definitely one you want to watch spoiler free. So fast forward or skip ahead if you just tap and fast forward if you haven't seen it.
Timestamps are below.
Or that. Yes. So this one, we have Michael Fassbender. He was already great as the villainous character of David, the AI in Prometheus, but then we have him appear again as a newer model of the AI, with his bad side edited out as Walter, and he has like a different hair style and stuff like that to kind of differentiate. But the twist here is when David reappears, and I don't think Michael Fassbender got an award for this, but he should have. Just playing like those two roles, and like it's just, like you're afraid of David, like just from everything you saw in the last film, and then like when he's back, and you're like, oh no, and then he starts copying Walter, and like it's just so good. Like this Alien 1 and Alien 2 are the best. I haven't seen 3 or any of the other ones in that line, and then I saw Prometheus and Covenant, and they're both good. They're good movies, but I will recommend people to sit through 2 movies just to have this interaction where we're watching Michael Fassbender be David and Walter. It's just incredible. One of my all-time favorite villains, legitimately scary, and yeah, that's why I had to pick him. It just immediately stood out in my mind, not only when we were trying to make the list of these, but just watching it. It was just like one of my all-time favorite villains. And he just does an incredible job.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like you said, the reason to watch those movies is for him, because it really is a great performance that stays with you. It's one of those that stands out among, because there are, androids in Alien and Aliens, who are both great. Ian Holm and Lance Hendrickson do a great job in those roles, in those films. They stand out and have important roles to play.
I like the ambiguity of them in the Alien universe too. Like you don't really know which side they're on all the time.
Right. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, good pick.
Yeah, I love how you go with it's like best AI performance as opposed to whether it's
true.
necessarily a great film. That's a great way to look at it. I mean,
it is.
It's interesting too, because some performances are more impactful than others from the AI itself.
Definitely. Yeah, great perspective. Bert, we're on to your number one. What do you got?
Okay, well, I guess, but it's The Matrix here.
There it is, right behind you.
Yeah. Well, a few films have sort of blown my mind like this. Sometimes I talk about the trailer because that's sort of what led me into it, and it was, such a big impact after the trailer. And the trailer promised a lot. Some impressive looking action. and it looked like could they really make that a good film? Probably not. Is what you're kind of thinking. But you hope, So and then also ask this great question of what is the Matrix, and you got to go to the film to find out. So great marketing. And the thing is, when you find out what it is, and then you sit through these action scenes, it just far exceeded my expectations. It's kind of a fresh concept. I mean, there's a lot of credit you could say to Terminator and a lot of other material that came before it. But this idea that we're living in a dream world, and then the robots are overseeing everything. It's just it did feel really fresh. And I think it was just filmed tremendously by the Wachowskis. The action scenes are still some of the best in any film that I've seen. Some of the camera angles and sort of the stylish quality in which they're presented. Slow-mo, I love slow-mo if it's done well. There's plenty of that to be found here. It was really thrilling to see Keanu and Fishburne doing the actual fighting, and there weren't a whole lot of stars at the time that were doing their own stunts. I mean, you knew Tom Cruise was going to do it, of course, but Keanu Reeves, I mean, he was more of he could have been seen more kind of like a pretty boy type. So you see, wait, is he going to actually do the fighting? And he does, and it's really impressive. And then, I think I mentioned the shot setups. I mean, some of the most creative ones, like the whole bullet time thing, was created for this and had never been seen before. Excellent performances throughout the cast. A really great sort of bad guy with Agent Smith. I mean, Hugo Weaving, his performance is off the charts. I mean, still probably one of my favorite villains of all time. And I mean, this is a top 10 film of all time for me. That's how impactful this was to me. And so obviously had to rest at number one for AI films.
Excellent choice. Yeah, it was definitely one considered because it is so, what's the word, just revolutionary, like a movie that broke new ground, showed you things you hadn't seen, push technology forward. It blended all these different genres: sci-fi, dystopian, apocalyptic, AI. Borrowed a lot from anime. Like the Wachowskis are really eclectic in their kind of taste, so it definitely shows in the Matrix. Excellent film. I like the design of the machines is cool too. Those kind of squid looking creatures that come out and attack in the real world. For sure. So excellent choice. And in the sequels we get to know the architect, and you get to more into the AI and the inner workings of it, and that whole thing is really a fascinating mythology that they built. Very original,
even the newest one. I don't know if you saw it. I thought that was pretty good too.
I thought it was great. I really liked Resurrections.
So
excellent choice.
I need to revisit this one. I saw it one time years after it was well known, and I haven't gone back to. I need to rewatch it and then watch the other ones because I haven't seen any of the other ones yet. But yeah, like you said, Bert, maybe we've seen some things before, but there's just nothing like this. Like you can't hold up the Matrix and like compare it to any other movie, because like you said, there's so many different, like you said, Cam, there's so many different things coming into this, and it just has just such a unique style and look and feel, and everything. And it's iconic.
Great. All right. Well, we're on to my number one, another film that broke new ground, but was not very well received upon initial release.
Oh no.
It is Blade Runner. Blade Runner from 1982, directed by Ridley Scott, based on Philip K. Dick's short story Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which was written in 1968. This film took a long time to develop, was a nightmare of a shoot. Everything went wrong. It was extremely difficult conditions. The crew hated one another. They hated Ridley Scott. They wanted to quit. It was extreme. There's a documentary called Dangerous Days, the making of Blade Runner. It's longer than the movie. It's like almost a 3-hour documentary.
Oh wow!
On the making of this film and what a complete nightmare it was to get made. No one wanted to give him any money for it. Even though he'd come off of Alien, that's why he was able to do this. He just come off the success of Alien. And he brought back Sid Mead, who's the he's a visual futurist, a concept artist who kind of designed all of the alien, ships and, the alien itself and all that stuff. He brought him back to kind of design this vision of 2019 Los Angeles, the far, future at the time. And so, yeah, when it was released, of course it had Harrison Ford, who was hugely popular. He had done Indiana Jones at this point. He had done Star Wars, but that wasn't enough to get butts in seats. People just, I don't think, knew what it was. It was very poorly marketed. And the reviews even were very mixed at the time from critics. So it, over time, though, of course, as some movies do, gained a cult following. This group of people who just were kind of obsessed with it, looked at all the details and kind of figured things out, and watched it over and over and over again. So even though it didn't make any money, eventually in 2017 we got a sequel, Blade Runner 2049, which honestly is just as good as the original. It's one of those few sequels that to me is equal to the original movie. But the original is the original. That's why I picked it, because it came first. And it's one of those movies that when I heard about it, I started to get into movies and started hearing about this Blade Runner movie, this kind of obscure thing, but it had Harrison Ford, my favorite actor. I was like, I've got to watch this. And so hunted it down, and I was just floored. I was blown away by what I saw. It was just so different from anything that I'd seen. Yet in it, I could see where other people were inspired. Matrix being a huge one. The Wachowskis talk about Blade Runner all the time, how, yeah, this is a huge touchstone for them of, how they kind of wanted certain elements of the Matrix to look and feel. It's a very atmospheric film. It's very much a throwback to kind of old, it's really kind of a noir detective story at its center. So it has that kind of slow pacing. It's not a fast paced action movie by any means. I think with a name like Blade Runner, you kind of expect like, oh, this is going to be like a big fast pace. There's going to be people chasing each other, and are there going to be swords or what? I don't know. It's like, it's not that at all. It's a very kind of more, like I said, just kind of atmospheric. I have to be in the right mood for this movie. It's one of my favorites ever made, but whenever it's raining, I typically put this on. It's like, because it's always raining in the movie. There's not a scene where it's not raining. That's one of the things that happened in the future, I guess. It just, never ends, the rain. But yeah, like I said, it's very influential on, guys like James Cameron, Guillermo del Toro, Frank Darabont. The effects in it were groundbreaking for the time. A lot of use of miniatures, a lot of different kind of, rear projection is used. Like they use all kinds of different technology in it. And it's a film that is on tons of, top 10 lists, AFI, Sight and Sound, Time Magazine, Entertainment Weekly. Again, I think just over time, as things have gone on, people have developed more of an appreciation for it. The replicants is the AI in this film. And the replicants really aren't robots. They're really actually humans that just aren't made the old-fashioned way, basically. They're made by the Tyrell Corporation. The opening crawl of the film says they took robotics to the Nexus phase, which basically is they were just creating humans now with this artificial intelligence, but they're stronger than typical humans. They're more agile. So they're used for slave labor off-world to kind of develop these colonies on these other planets. This story is about several of them who escape, come back to Earth, and they're looking for longer life because they only live for 4 years. So it's a very kind of existential film, a lot about, again, what it is to be human, lifespan, eternity. These kind of concepts are all, explored. Ford gives a very unique performance. It's very subtle, nuanced. He's not very heroic. He's kind of a loser. He gets beat up a lot. He's very selfish and very kind of unfeeling towards anyone or anything. He guns people down without thinking about it. But through his interactions with the replicants, he kind of finds his humanity. That's kind of what the whole arc is, right? He meets Rachel, falls in love with her through his interactions with Rutger Hauer's character, Roy Batty, who's kind of a very like charismatic and very full of life and energy replicant, and he kind of learns from him. He gives that awesome speech, one of my favorite lines of dialogue: all these moments will be lost in time like tears in rain. Right before he dies, he kind of makes peace with it, and it kind of changes Rick Deckard as a character, interacting with all of these different replicants. So I like it a lot. Ridley Scott has gone on record saying he believes Deckard is a replicant. There's little things that hint towards that, the unicorn and something that happens with his eyes during one of the scenes. But I think the movie just doesn't work if he's a replicant, because it's all about a human discovering his humanity through these replicants. So Harrison Ford's on the other side. He says, no, I played him as a human. That was always my intention. But so there's kind of a divide. There's all kinds of theories and things going on with this world. And the sequel fleshed out the world so much better. I really like the sequel a lot. The entire cast is great. I mentioned Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, Daryl Hannah, Edward James Olmos. Really, really good cast. Just, again, such a unique looking movie, not just the rain, but like the neon, the way they did the light. There's always lights like moving around in the environments. And so it just has such a specific look to it that I think people were kind of mesmerized by, and I continue to be mesmerized by it. Vangelis, his score is great as well, very ethereal, and again, kind of atmospheric, just very unique. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this movie. I like it more every time I watch it, and the sequel's much the same way. So Bert, you want to give us a counterpoint now?
Yeah, I'll throw out my thoughts, and I'm glad you started with me, because then maybe we can end on a positive note. I saw this for the first time a few days ago. Okay, so I had not seen it before, and it's just really out there. I don't really get it. It's very 80s and not in a good way. I would describe it as sort of avant-garde type of film, experimental. And it was really hard for me to get on board with it. Now, I did like the visuals, like the miniatures and some of the stuff. I'm like, wow, it's like the effort they put in like Star Wars or something like that. But otherwise, that's about it. What do you got, Josh?
I'm kind of in the middle on it. I've only seen it the one time, and I've only seen the final cut. Which actually, real quick, Bert, which one did you see? Because there's the final, the original, and then the director's.
Oh, really?
Is that what it is, Cam?
Well, there's 5. Technically, I have 5 here in my Blu-ray set. Yeah, there's the work print, which is the one they showed test audiences. It still has like unfinished effects in it.
Wow, I'm surprised they released that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then on this disc, it has the U.S. theatrical cut, the international cut, and the director's cut. And then in 2007, he did the final cut, which is put in all new effects, fixed things, and basically made it the way he always intended it to be. So, so yeah. So you said you saw the final cut, Josh?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting that they released a director's cut, and then the final cut is like really the director's cut.
Yeah, the director's cut was supposedly a studio mandated thing. It wasn't what
I hate it when they do that.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. Or like they'll do it and then the editors did it, but they'll still call it the director's cut. I'm like, that's you're just lying to people. Right. It's so annoying. But yeah, so I liked aspects about it, but it kind of like you were saying, Bert, like it's very like ethereal and like out there, and like I don't feel like I fully got it on the first watch. I appreciate is another one that I appreciated more than I liked. And I feel like the second one, for whatever reason, did a lot better job at I don't know, being less experimental, but not in a bad way, but also being very experimental in other ways. So I don't know. I don't really know. I like the second one more, but I need to go back and rewatch it because, like, obviously it's an iconic film. It's been several years since I've seen it, and I just want to like give it another shot and like really, really dig into it.
Yeah, it's usually a love it or hate it type of movie, but I think some people on rewatch have appreciated or liked it more. And yeah, the sequel, Bert, I think you will get more out of the sequel. I think it's it's a bigger movie. There's more going on. Ryan Gosling's great. Harrison Ford comes back and he's amazing. Yeah, the camera work Roger Deakins did is great. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it for our top 3 AI movies. Let us know your list in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. And we'll see you next time right here on The Real World.